see you here, if I may say so, in such large numbers. It's great to have a chance to chat with everybody and to answer questions and to look at where we're going as a party. I really appreciate so many of you coming out tonight. It's great to be with Glenn. I can tell you there's a sense of great emptiness in my life that Glenn isn't there throwing barbs at me every day as he does here. Glenn was really a very different kind of MP because he really knows a lot about international development and was able to talk to ministers about it, sometimes offline, off the record, just say what's going on and what's happening. I'll come to Glenn's old portfolio in a minute because, you know, the world is changing around us politically in ways that I don't think we all fully recognize or appreciate. And perhaps the trip to the picket line gave me an opportunity to really reflect a lot on the changes that have happened. And I think all of us have been reading Glenn's blog over the last several weeks, have had a sense that here is a person who's really thinking and writing about what's going on every day in the community, and who's coming at it in a way that is not hugely ideological or based on sort of a whole lot of philosophical baggage, but just based on the human consequences of what we're seeing. And I think we all have to recognize that this is the key strength that the Liberal Party has and that the Liberal Party brings to the political process. So when people say to me that the last election seemed to indicate that time was running out on the Liberal Party, or somehow the world was passing us by, and people would seem to prefer to have to choose between the Harper philosophy and the NDP philosophy, and that the Liberal Party really didn't have much to offer in that kind of a situation. I couldn't disagree more, and it's not a matter of my giving a big rhetorical speech saying why that's true. It's just trying to engage the Canadian public in a conversation and say, what kind of politics do you really want to have? Do you want to have a politics that's driven by ideology and power, or do you want to have a politics that's driven by values that we share, and then a conversation about what's the best way to make the decisions that will get us to a sensible point? And I don't think there's any argument. The vast majority of Canadians want to be where we are as a party. They don't want to come up with philosophical or ideological answers. They want to come to us with practical solutions to their situation, and they want to have a sense of the vision of the party that takes us beyond where we are today. And I think that's something we have to be able to do, and something we need to continue to engage people about. I often start these talks, and I've been giving over the last while about the party, with a couple of very simple messages and a couple of simple ideas. The first one is the need for inspiration, and the second one is the need for perspiration. The two of them seem to go together. The inspiration side, we're just beginning in the party now to really kind of get a conversation going around the country on the kind of policy changes, the sort of political choices we want to be able to offer Canadians in the next election. And building up to that time, you don't just wait until the next election. You've got a whole lot of work to do in building where we are and talking to people about the changes that are required. And, we could talk tonight about healthcare, we could talk about the environment, we could talk about the economy, talk about Canada and the world. There's a whole range of things we could cover in that dialogue, in that conversation, where I think we would come away from that conversation feeling that liberalism, Canadian liberal ideas, have an awful lot to offer when it comes to all of those things that are very, very strong and keen on people's minds. What often happens during an election is you come at people with a short kind of shopping list of the things that you're going to offer as opposed to what others are going to offer. And the trouble we find many times is that people aren't that interested in the shopping list because they don't really understand the context in which you're presenting the list. So we have to start the politics and the conversation now. And the advantage that we have with the technology that's available to us is that we can have a very broad-based conversation with the Canadian people using every means of communication and talking to them about the choices that are there. So if I can just use one example that I know some people have been responding to because it was in the headline of a number of papers, they'll say, well, what is this about legalizing marijuana? So you sort of say, wait a minute, the context for that is, does it really make sense to keep on locking up kids who, indulge smoke pot? Does it really make sense for us to spend billions of dollars trying to deal with this question any more than it made sense to spend billions of dollars, as we did 100 years ago, on stopping people from drinking? No one's sitting here saying, this is the Liberal Party endorsing something. It's not about that at all. It's about the Liberal Party asking a question. When we look at the criminal justice changes being brought in by the Conservatives, we recognize that they have a jail agenda, and they have an agenda that says, if somebody steps out of line, let's pass a law stopping it, and then let's throw them in jail. Forgetting the fact that that isn't necessarily the best way to create safety. It isn't necessarily the best way to stop people from joining gangs. It isn't the best way to ensure that people have security on their streets. And so we need, as Liberals, not just to react against what we're being presented with. We need, as Liberals, to say, let's start with safe streets and let's start with security. And then let's ask ourselves the question, how do we ensure that we actually get there? What do we need to do to help parents raise kids? What do we need to do to help kids who are very quickly identified as having problems? What do we do to make sure that we're helping parents cope with those problems? What do we do to make sure that kids in grades 5, 6, 7, and 8 aren't, in fact, joining gangs? How do we break up gangs effectively? How do we, at the federal level, work effectively with the province to make sure that we are supporting the efforts to deal with gangs? Because gangs are a real issue. We're not, people say the Liberals are soft on crime. No. Well, actually, it's such a bizarre notion. You walk down the street, you find anybody, say, are you soft on crime? I haven't met anybody who's outside maybe of Al Capone and a few friends who are soft on crime. Nobody's soft on crime. What we need to do is to be smart on crime. And we need to be as tough on the causes of crime as we are on crime itself. So yeah, I think we should be tough on crime. I also think we should be smart on crime. And so we're going to need to develop a bunch of policies, and we're also going to need to talk through with Canadians why the policies that we present to people in the next election actually make sense. Because I can assure you, the Conservatives will be running negative ads that will try to caricature any position that we take. And if you wanted to be able to really defend those positions and then go, if you like, on the